Hey everyone, in this video we are probably going to finish up the manufacturing database. The initial request had three components to it. One, having the on-hand supplies be reduced whenever an object was being ordered to be manufactured. Two, have your on-hand supplies be increased whenever you receive supplies, and that to convert the receiving measurement into measurement of consumption. So you might receive one spindle of wire and you convert that to whatever 500 centimeters of wire. The third part of the request was to have a report auto-generate that shows which resources, which supplies are now below their minimum required amounts. So let's look at that part. So first we're going to have to make changes to our table, our supplies table. So we're going to open that up. What we're going to do, we're going to click on View, we're going to click on Design View, and now we're going to add two more fields. We're going to add min underscore REQ, so the minimum requirement. That will be a number. And then let's call this order underscore site. This will be the actual website that you go to place your order with the vendor. And what we do is for data type, we choose hyperlink. And now we click on view, we save it. And so now we need to put some values in here. So minimum requirement, this first one, let's have it. The minimum requirement will be lower than what we've got on hand, so that one doesn't show. This one, the minimum requirement will be above, so that way that one does show. And then this minimum requirement will be actually, minimum 500, so that way C shows up, and we won't have D show up. We'll just put this at like 50. And then here, you just need to put in the order site. So what I'm going to do, let's put Bing in the first one. Obviously, you're not ordering from Bing. I just need to demonstrate that it shows the right link. And no, I did not do the underline because I declared this as a hyperlink. It's doing that for me. So that's telling me that it is treating it like a hyperlink. This is just my personal website, so we'll toss this in here. Just put YouTube here. And then this will be, we'll do Bing again. They should not display anyways, so it shouldn't be a problem, but we should still put an entry in here. Okay, so let's close the table. Yes, we want to make the changes, save the changes. Now we create a query that's going to look at that and select the field, select the records that meet the criteria of the on-hand supply is below the minimum requirement. So create, query design. It's our supply table. We can close that. I'm going to click on the first one, shift, click on the last one, drag down. So we said this supply amount needs to be below this. So we're going to right click, build. So it needs to be less than. Now we come over here and we navigate through our database, table, supply, and we said it needs to be below the minimum requirement. We click OK, and that should be all it takes for the query portion to work. So let's run. So B shows up. Supply amount is indeed below minimum requirement. C shows up. Supply amount is indeed below minimum requirement. And there are the corresponding websites. We close that and we do yes. And we haven't been doing anything special with the naming, so we'll just leave that as query 3. Now what we do is we create a report that points to this as the data source. So create blank report, view, design view. Make sure the report is selected up here, so you're changing the properties of the report itself. Design, property, data tab, record source. query 3, because we don't want to look at the supply table. We want to look at the query, because the query is what's applying that criteria and say only display certain records. Now, I said I don't really care too much about desktop publishing and layout, but I will show you a little bit because reports are kind of unique. So let's go ahead, and now that we've selected a record source, if we come to add existing fields, we now have fields we can choose from. So let's take supply and drag it there. We'll move the label above it. Now watch what happens. See how big the report is? So unlike the form, this is not what you see is what you get. Basically what's happening is this entire space gets repeated for every single record. Same for the label. You get the label every single time. There's only 2, so it only looks mildly ridiculous. But if you have like 50 or 100, clearly it's not usable. So 2 things. 1, you can cut the label. So right-click, cut, right-click, paste. And now you've broken the label away from the actual field. So first let's run this again just so you can see that. See, it's only once, it's not down here. Then you just point at the top edge of this and you push it up. And now only this space is repeated per record. So just like that, you've made it look a lot better. Now let's add the other field. So we'll do supply amount, cut, paste, and you might want to leave more space. I know that these words aren't very big. It's just resource A, B, C. So if you have a much more descriptive name, then you're going to want to create more space here. Don't really need per unit for this report. And then the order site. All right. So just like that, you've made a nice clean little report. You could add above this, if you want to create more space, you could add a label, like how I showed you how you could add like a title using the label object on the form. You could do the same thing. So I won't do it here since I already showed you, but you could just do a label, increase the font, underline it, make it bold, whatever, and have it say reorder form, that kind of thing, or reorder report. So let's just run this. Okay, so far so good. So the final step is this report now needs to run on demand, because right now it's just sitting there. It's part of the database. You would have to manually come over to here to run it. So now we need this to automatically run. And this is where we get into a technology versus operation decision. So technologically, we could indeed have this report run every single time a supply has gone below the required amount. But here's the problem. The report generates, you order, well, the next time that the next time that this report is triggered, those same entries would show up again, because even though you've placed an order, you haven't actually received it yet. So you would really need to modify this report with yet another field that would not just do this calculation that we're doing now, but it would have to add into the supply amount the ordered amount, or else it's just going to keep saying you need to order, you need to order, you need to order. So hopefully I explained that correctly. So technologically, you could have this report show up 100 times a day if you wanted to. My recommendation would instead have it simply be part of your procedure where whatever, at noon you run the report, or once a day you run the report, run it first thing in the morning, whatever. So even though the original request was have this run every single time, it creates a complication because, again, you're going to have to make a notation. Even if it only shows up once, you're really still going to have to do that. You're still going to have to make a notation that there's an order. And so this on-hand amount is going to have to treat it as if it's been increased, even though you haven't received that order yet. So maybe one more video so we can look at how to handle that. Let's close our report. We save it. And are we going to give it any kind of name? Yeah, let's call this reorder. Report. So let's just go ahead and create a new form. So create blank form. Again, we're going to shut off the selectors. So view, design view, design, property, format, record selector, no, navigation button, no. Create our button. Let's just cancel this out. I like to do these manually. So now we'll call this run report. And ultimately what you would do is you would create another form that would act like a main menu, and each of those would have a button that would lead to these forms. Or possibly this particular report could be right on the main menu itself rather than having a separate subform. So event. We'll do a macro again. And we want to open report, report name, reorder report, save it, close it, save this, and we'll call this reorder. Now we'll just go to view, run report, and there you go. So now it's just a matter of clicking on the link to see if it actually brings you to the corresponding website. Now we just click on Tech Workbench, and sure enough, it opened. So that should about do it for this tutorial. So I hope this was helpful. And if there's anything else you want to see for the manufacturing database, just let me know. Like I said, I can't get really hyper specific with some of this stuff because, again, since I don't actually have a supplier that I order from, I can't go to an actual site. I can't actually place an order, but hopefully this will help you kind of close the gap with what you're trying to do. And again, if there's anything else you would like to see, just leave a comment and say, can I add, functionality XYZ? And please enjoy the rest of your day.